Thank you both for your presentations and for being here with us today. I've had a lot of contact from school principals, SNAs and parents over the last few days concerned about the new criteria that's been introduced by the NCSE and what you referred to there, as well as the reduction in the review. I mean, I don't know how this can make any sense, because if a new student comes into a school and they require SNA support and they come in the middle of November because they've moved into the area, does this mean that the school can't apply for additional support for that child, can't apply for another SNA if they need another SNA or so forth? Is that your understanding of it? Or?
I think there's a vague mention in it that you can contact your SNA if that happens, but there's no follow-up about what will happen after that or if anything will be done about it or whether you'll be entitled to a review after that. It's all very vague.
I mean, the review process is actually very poor at the moment. I mean, I know one principal who went through a review in March, sat down with the CNOs because he knew there were students coming in September that into junior infants that required support, 3 were quite complex. And when he got his allocation at the end of June, there was no change to it. And then when I contact the NCSE, they say, oh, well, they can appeal it and have a review in August. I said, they've gone through a review process. I mean, what was the point of all of that? I have another secondary school with over 650 students and 1 SNA in the whole school. They reckon they've 100 students that require support, and again, they've been refused. So, I mean, I know we will hear from the department, and you say here, like, Caroline, you referred to the limits on recruitment and retention have become persistent challenges. And yet, when we have the department and the NCSE in the second session, they're saying there's no issue with recruitment or retention. So, can you just expand on that? And again, an SNA told me last night that she's on a WhatsApp group with 400 SNAs, and they're all subs.
So I don't think it's a problem recruiting. I think you can get SNAs, just how many you're allowed to have. So, I mean, if our SNAs were expanded, we would get people to fill those jobs, no problem. It's just we're only allowed to have so many. We're only allowed to retain so many, and we need more.
Senator, the retention of SNAs is primarily an issue around redundancy. Well, a school that applies for an exceptional review runs the risk that the assessment will determine they've too many. The recent guidelines issued by the NCSE bring forward the timescales to ensure that schools receive notification of their SNA allocations at the same time as they do their special education teachers. In previous years, we've been in June before SNAs know if they've got a job in September. That's not acceptable. So something has to be done. In terms of the criteria being narrowed, one would worry if a school that's opening new special classes can only staff that special class by moving SNAs who are currently supporting students in mainstream. There is a serious question for the department and the NCSE to answer around what their policy is. 2 or 3 years ago, it was about building up capacity in mainstream, inclusion in mainstream classes. Now it seems to be the reverse. Nobody knows really where they are with the department's overall policy. But the biggest issue around retention of SNAs is the risk of redundancy. That's why redeployment is crucial.
Okay, yeah. But, I mean, talking to SNAs, they are really, really concerned, like what you're just saying, that what you've referred to there, that the need in the class for autistic students is going to be greater, or perceived to be greater than the need in mainstream. And you've got students in mainstream who won't be able to cope without this. There's also an issue as well that a lot of students are starting school without assessments because there's a backlog in assessments, and therefore the need, you know, for an SNA is not being identified, even though they clearly need one. So, I mean, can we see ourselves move into a situation where a school, they will listen better to school principals and teachers when they say a student needs an SNA?
Well, we would say that the previous system requiring professional reports and a diagnosis was really disadvantageous for less well-off families, because certain families could pay for the reports privately. If you had to rely on HSE disability services, you could be waiting until your child finished post-primary before you got that report. So again, something has to be done about that. But waiting for professional reports really shortchange people.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for your presentations. I mean, look, I've been receiving a lot of emails from school principals, parents, SNAs, again, with concern about the review process. And they're basically, I've been asked, like, will you consider a review or a suspension of it just until proper consultation has taken place with schools and SNAs and parents. Because I just feel like from time limit of 15th September to 24th October is very short. And it's just, you know, students will come into a school, there will be need throughout the year, and I mean, that needs to be addressed. And like a lot of schools I have talked to as well, they frequently look for more support, because I will acknowledge it, right, the increase in the number of SNAs and special classes, special schools. But need is still not being met in schools. And we still have a lot of schools where they're looking for extra SNA access for students, and it's been denied. And they're really concerned. And I mean, I've had 2 schools already this year with students coming to junior infants with needs, and no extra SNA access was granted to them, and they had to appeal that decision, and they're still waiting on trying to deal with the students in the meantime, and it's just not fair on the students. There is also concern about some of the issues there about the complex need level 3 care needs. I mean, many feel that it's going to be based just on physical care needs and medical care needs, whereas emotional need and, you know, children who need to regulate and need movement breaks, it's just as important. They can't cope with a day without that support in school, and we'll end up what we've had for years with students basically dropping out of school or masking their behaviour and then, you know, being very difficult at home. So we need more support. And just a question, I suppose, like, I just feel the need has not been met, and our allocations restrained due to budget. I mean, I don't think, like, we're just not basing allocation on the needs in our schools. There obviously is a budget restraint there, and that's not fair on the students who are missing out on a vital education. So I'm just, as I say, just if you could just address those issues very quickly. No time.
I suppose just to take the degree of consultation, just to reassure you, Senator, we are very much continually listening to feedback from parents and from school leaders. And in terms of the SNA redeployment as such within schools, we've conducted 1,100 in sessions, in workshops with school leaders. Now, the strong endorsing feedback from that was get allocations out early to schools and streamline them with teacher allocation that normally goes out in February. Make sure you have your SNA allocations and your special teacher allocations going out in that phase as well. Just to reassure, there is evolving complexity of need arises in schools. Just 2 years ago, we conducted 700 reviews. We conducted 1,400 reviews within schools. During the summer months, we did another 200 in that. That's a cumulative total of about 2,300 reviews that we have conducted in schools. So we're continually trying to keep the emerging need, and that is a fluid dynamic within schools, trying to keep a handle of that and responding swiftly to schools' emerging needs itself. In terms of the overall allocation, maybe Frank, if you want to take an element of that.
Yeah, in the 10 seconds, I think, Chair. But just firstly on the overall allocation, Senator, like, obviously we get an extra allocation. You know, we look for, through the estimates process, additional SNAs every year, and we got obviously 1,600 this year, and the NCC are going to be allocating every single one of those, and probably the rest. So it's, you know, there is a budgetary position. However, the NCC are tasked with going out and reviewing individual schools and looking at the care need within those schools on the basis of those schools. So that's just on that point. And then just one other quick point is just obviously that review window, as we've discussed earlier, for the 6 weeks, there is, and I think NCC clarified this with schools maybe that were a bit concerned about it, that there will be opportunity after that 6 week. The point of that 6 week window is to get it early in the year to allow for the earlier release of the allocations, etc. So there will be opportunities for schools if needs arise.
Thank you, Mr.